Alright, hey everybody, welcome back to my comprehensive review of Gundam Witch from Mercury. I'm your friend, Buster Green, and I am currently almost monetized at this point. There's really nothing else I can do or you can do. I'm currently just waiting for my channel to be inspected and approved. It should hopefully happen in the next month, but anyway, please watch this video and subscribe in the event that I am actually monetized someday. When I am, I'll release my own anime on this channel. So let's get back to the memes and back to the recaps. Episode 20 last week was a major shit hitting the fan episode. I thought there might be more legal fuckery with Shadi committing obvious crimes in plain sight of everyone and not suffering any consequences. But this is Gundam, not real life, so consequences came immediately in the form of Ghoul beating the shit out of him in a massive mobile suit fight, cutting off his mobile suit's arms and legs, and arresting him. While a full Cathedral assault force took down and mostly arrested his entire harem. Someone dropped this hilarious drawing comparing the horror of Season 2 compared to the relatively chill dating anime Season 1 was. And episode 20 was about unchill as it could possibly get. Unfortunately though, despite being arrested, Shadiq still managed to release Noria, who went batshit bonkers on the school and totally destroyed it, killing a very large number of kids. Elon 5, in a surprisingly heroic moment, managed to talk Noria down with the power of love. Unfortunately, this is Gundam though, so the power of love kinda worked. But then Noria was immediately killed with extreme prejudice by a faceless sniper. And as she died, she asked Elon 5 to reveal his real name, which led many people online joking that this episode was like the hit anime movie Your Name, only if the main girl got snipered to death at the last moment in the end. Which, you know what, is the funniest ironic meme of the week, I think. Anyway, yeah, so otherwise, episode 20 was some major, serious business. It mostly was the Ghoul Shadiq fight, and Soletta was caught in the crossfire as the school was destroyed. Petra died. And then at the end, Soletta got the Earth House kids to band together to dig out the bodies. Now, there was also a blink and you'll miss it moment where Choo-Choo's demi trainer got blown up by Noria, so Cecilia gave Choo-Choo a random, slightly upgraded demi thingy, which is the first time the two thick girls in the show have ever interacted, and yeah, I had some problems with how fucking convenient this was, but anyway, it happened. Anyway, that was the big cusp of the episode. Despite that, there were also two other memes not contained or based on the show this week. In the beautiful country of communist China, a drawing of Mirin appeared on a show of some kind, but hilarious, the Chinese identified her as a man because gay people don't exist in communist countries, making this also the most prominent appearance of male Mirin ever. Similarly, in the ongoing global sexual wars, where various despots and fascists are trying to decide who can and cannot love each other, American Gundam Info sent out a stupid-ass tweet last night, weirdly cursing out anyone still shipping Ghoul and Soletta at this point. And so they got flamed very hard for that, which is just kind of hilarious to me. Personally, just from where the plot is at this point, I don't see Ghoul and Soletta getting together, and honestly, Ghoul is probably going to die because Gundam is just full of ironic deaths. Alright, that's the end of the recap. Let's get into the new episode and see where that ironic death actually happens. So episode 21 starts with a prison freighter lugging Belle back to the Benner Group's head office. Interestingly, despite being arrested, she's sitting in the co-pilot seat at the front of the bus. I guess just to keep an eye at her. Or maybe they just didn't have anyone to drive the bus other than this guy. We return to the Itasca school the day after Noria's attack, and the school is just fucking gone. It's been wrecked to oblivion, pushed into the dirt. Especially the girls' Tomatoes house, which is just squished beyond repair. Then we go to this FEMA disaster camp. This disaster camp heavily resembles the one Japan used in the 2011 tsunami, but it's a little bit more futuristic. But all the kids are living in these trailers, and they're just stuck there with probably no electricity on the basis that their dorms are currently unusable. Now the kids who survived are reasonably bored and pissed off, except for Soletta Mercury, who's trying to be a best girl and trying to help everyone. Cecilia corners Soletta and gives her massive mean girl energy. It's just what the fuck are you doing, Soletta? And Soletta's just I can still move and I'm gonna help. And that is very reasonable because so many kids in the last episode got squished to death, and the way she phrased it makes me think a bunch of kids probably lost their arms and legs. Anyway, then Cecilia asks if Soletta has changed, and Soletta just says she thinks she has. Kind of a loaded question from Cecilia. I thought there was going to be a little bit more to this moment, but the fact that Soletta is also back to her peppy, optimistic self kind of makes it feel like to me she hasn't changed at all. Alright, anyway, cue the opening. By the way, I'm really surprised at this point they haven't adjusted the opening to downgrade Soletta's clothes from white to green. Although I forgot to mention they did reanimate Cool Bob instead of Punish Bob. Anyway, so yeah, that brings us to episode 21. What can we do now? So, hey everyone, Petra's still alive. Sorta, yay. Well, it looks like she's gonna pull around, but she also might not. Anyway, Ghoul comes back in head honcho mode, and Cathedral starts to dissect Noria's Gundam. A yes man says that Noria was completely annihilated in a hamburger, and the leader says he's an idiot for not looking at Shaddiq sooner because Shaddiq pulled all the crimes. Also off screen, in an interesting blink and you'll miss a twist, the presidential election is just over, they didn't even have it, and Miorine is present by default. I guess her only competition was arrested, so they just didn't bother to have an election and they just gave it to her. Now, interestingly, Ghoul is still in Cathedral, and Delling is also in the room next door, still in a coma. And then we go to Miorine, who was absent most of the last episode, and Miorine is completely devastated and shell-shocked. She's just been completely ruined since Prosperous false fag attack on Quinn Harbor. And then that combined with the school being destroyed and Shaddiq being arrested, and now she's present by default. It's just too much for the poor girl to deal with, and it just all happened in like 2 days, so it's like incredibly overwhelming for her. And on top of it all happening, Miorine has gone into like this total failure imposter mode because she wasn't able to stop the mindless violence. So what kind of president is she really? Now, Ghoul ends up being a super awesome boyfriend and talking Miorine down from the cliff. And then they go to visit Shaddiq in prison, who's like acting way too much like the Joker, who's like super happy. Was he happy to be caught? Oh no, he's happy because Miorine is visiting him, and he's immediately like, oh, I heard you're the president now. Sorry. Anyway, he asks her about the harem status. Mio says they're all good. Shaddiq does the manly thing and takes responsibility for his harem to try and get them off easier, but I think it's Charlie Manson's situation where they're all going to do time. Anyway, then Miorine is surprisingly nice to Shaddiq because they used to be friends, so she tries to sympathize with him, and at this point, Miorine did not want to marry Shaddiq. She did not want Shaddiq to hostilely take over her company, and she didn't even seem to want to work with him in like any capacity, but despite all that, I guess their long history together still makes them friends, and she kind of admires Shaddiq for doing what he did for the Earth, but she says that he did it the wrong way because he did it with terrorists. Shaddiq said that he had to do it to stop human suffering, and that's why he teamed up with terrorists, but Miorine is overall disgusted with Shaddiq, but at the same time she's disgusted with herself too, so that's why they're hanging out. Honestly, I do not think she's in the right place mentally to be interrogating him, because she's way too still blaming herself for the numerous murders that Shaddiq literally ordered and carried out himself. Back at the school, Soletta is giving over the leftover tomatoes with the help of Choo-Choo in the Earth House, because Soletta just doesn't want to waste any tomatoes because she worked way too hard making those tomatoes. Soletta reveals then that the tomato house actually made too many tomatoes, so Soletta had been freezing them to make like tomato sauce or whatever, but then she thinks now that the power has become unstable, so the freezers probably won't work, so it's best that they just give away all the tomatoes to the hungry survivors. She believes that Miorine would approve of it, and so yeah, that's what happened. All the Earth House kids are now giving out tomatoes. But before all that, Martin and Nika stepped aside and had a confrontation. Nika says that she knows she did wrong, so she's going to drop out of school and turn herself into the police. And Nika still wants to become a bridge between Earth and space, and Martin feels really bad because Martin just did a horrible job handling a position of authority, which actually makes him very similar to Miorine. But anyway, Nika forgives him and focuses on her own life, and that's that. Like, Nika's going to turn herself in, and Martin's just a loser. Soletta gives a tomato to Roji. His Haru does the talking for him. Roji is a weird character, but that's enough of him. Then Bell and Space Sheriff Guston show up to bring Soletta in for questioning because they expect Soletta to snitch on her mom's unethical bullshit. At the same time, the Benner group is having a UN-style meeting in their space base led by the Pale Witches, who are the only senior executives that have not been murdered or kidnapped at this point in the show. And this is already giving me really bad PTSD to the last time they were in charge, because the last time they were in charge, they put Soletta on an extremely tall platform and they yelled at her. Anyway, this time around, they are suddenly turning on the Benner group and blaming all the fucked up evil shit that was committed by Shaddiq, Prosper, and Delling as being committed by the group as a whole, because technically the group did a really bad job allowing 3 shady people to basically start a world war. And yeah, that's kind of not cool. So at this time, the Space Assembly League decides to grant Pale amnesty, and then some large American man walks out and declares that the Benner group will have to be dismantled to stop further fuckery to world peace. So yeah, out of nowhere, the Space Assembly League and Pale declare war on the rest of the Benner group. And this is followed up by them doing a one-for-one recreation of the old Zeon Invasion Army move from the original Gundam, and then it goes to a breaking news report that war has arrived. It's all-out war now. So back at Cathedral, they turn off the TV, and the Cathedral guys discuss with Ghoul that Prosper Mercury has just up and disappeared, and she took with her all the server data for the Quiet Zero, which has been deleted. So then Miorine is in total fuck everything mode because she still hasn't gotten over the last 2 battles, and now a war has been declared directly on her. Now at this point, Sirius Zanelli requests a Zoom call with Miorine. Sirius gets down to the war situation and says that Miorine learned absolutely nothing from her father, and in a surprisingly very nice move, Sirius tells her that the only way she can save the Benner group as a whole is if she passes the buck and blames everything, the Civil War and the terrorism, 100% on Grassley, and he's willing to accept the blame for everything Shaddiq did. Now, I'm not sure if this includes the separate situation with Quiet Zero and Prosper, but whatever. Sirius Zanelli is still willing to do the right thing at this point and take a hit to allow the Banner group to survive. Miorine, however, will not allow this because Miorine just fully hates herself at this moment, and she wants to take the full consequences herself because she feels like she did things wrong and she didn't do enough, and she feels like if she had done enough, she could have stopped all this from happening. So in the end, they don't do anything because Miorine blocks Sirius, and Miorine is just too fucking depressed to do anything proactive. Now anyway, back at the station, Soletta is drinking out of one of those red beer cups from a commercial, and she gets interrogated about the Quiet Zero. Now at this point, Belle comes out and actually explains to the kids that the Quiet Zero is supposed to be a thing that uses the aerial Gundam and some additional G-bits to extend the aerial's permit field to control a very large area of permit. And then suddenly the camera zooms out and wow, all the kids are there. This is actually an interrogation of everyone. So the kids actually point out that the Quiet Zero could be very, very bad in space because literally everything in space in this universe uses permit. So Choo-Choo asks the space cops, will the Quiet Zero just take over everything if it's turned on? And the sheriff says that Prosper was planning to use the Quiet Zero to create a giant data storm network all over the Earth's sphere. And the sheriff wants to stop Prosper before the Benneric group SAL war starts, because if the war starts, Prosper will just probably sneak around everyone's backs and just do it on her own accord. Now Soletta says her mom is completely unreasonable, and then declares that she's not her mom's real daughter, and everyone's like, you're adopted, and she's like, no. So Soletta says that everyone can hear the truth now, and Soletta at this point tries to explain her own understanding of who she is based on how the last couple of episodes have gone down. Soletta breaks it down that Prosper only acknowledges Ariel as her real daughter, and that Soletta is a Repla child, and Eric's soul was put into the Ariel Gundam when her body died, and she says that she still loves her mom and the life she has, but she also understands that her mom only cares about getting Eri back, and at this point she needs to do the thing with the giant data storm. Now at this point, Soletta is surprisingly gifted a new Gundam to stop Prosper, and interestingly, it's a Gundam from 21 years ago that the SAL had confiscated. So this is the Gundam Caliburn. It's an early model Gundam with no filter against data storms. Belle freaks out because seemingly without the filter, Soletta can probably only pilot it once, and then she's going to die. Now Nika tells Bamaria to back the fuck off because she knows Belle killed numerous people when she was working for Pale, and she thinks Bamaria is being a hypocrite for not wanting Soletta to die. Now I'm not sure what exactly Nika's angle is here because she seems like she might be trying to expose Belle on the record, but she also seems indirectly like she's pro Soletta dying in an old unsafe Gundam. I guess she's mostly just pissed off at Belle's hypocrisy. Anyway, Belle has a nervous breakdown from Nika and wishes she had died 21 years ago, and she starts crying. Also, Elon 5 has been hiding on the roof hearing all this go down, which is kind of nuts because I thought he had escaped to Earth. Anyway, Soletta has figured out that she's never suffered under the Gundam curse because Eri was actually controlling the Gundam area the whole time, and Soletta was just riding along for appearance's sake. Soletta says she'll do it because she needs to talk to her mom and Eri again, and everyone else says she's nuts. Soletta says she's decided that she has to do what she can do, because even if it doesn't help her, it's worth doing it if it helps everyone else. And so Soletta accepts the old dangerous Gundam that will probably kill her. Meanwhile, elsewhere though, Prospera plugs the Ariel into the Quiet Zero, and her staff fully follows her and calls her the president. Now at this point, we finally get a look at the Quiet Zero from the outside, and it looks like your typical end of the show giant asteroid, except it's shaped like one of the Ariel Gundam's bits, which is kind of a nice artistic touch. Now, logically, it makes sense for the show's science that it's literally just a scaled-up Gundam data storm distributor, so it would look like one of the bits, but I also have to respect the double flex here, that it also kind of resembles your classic Gundam final boss base. Anyway, yeah, so SAL and Cathedral find the Quiet Zero, but they're too fucking late because Prospera immediately turns it on. It starts shooting out the G-bits, it starts expanding its data storm, and then the SAL launches all their mobile suits, which just look like green GMs. But the G-bits go on auto, they fight the GMs, they kill them really easily, and the GMs get overwhelmed at the superior speed of the AI-controlled G-bits. And then the G-bits start working together to create a giant data storm. They deploy this huge data storm sphere, and it just kills all the SAL machines and ships because they all run on permit, and the giant data storm seems to make permit explode. It's basically a giant microwave bubble. Anyway, yeah, there's this super epic movie music as the SAL army is slaughtered, and Prospera acts completely crazy and praises Eri for the world she's about to have. Ghoul is meanwhile horrified, and Miorine has like the 5th breakdown in a row that she's had today, and she just like can't stop like crying every time someone dies. Now apparently this has all happened in real time right after the kids had just finished talking to the space cop and Bell, and so Choo Choo declares that the Earth House kids will all go together to support Soletta in space against the Quiet Zero. And also Elon 5 jumps off the roof, walks in the door, and decides to join them. Elon 5 says he couldn't escape the security because it was so bad, so he'll just help them and fulfill his agenda that way. But he also refuses to pilot another Gundam, and he gives Bell a dirty look. Now, Elon 5 apologizes to Soletta for being a creep in the previous episodes, and somehow Soletta instantly now knows exactly what happened with Elon and the whole Elon substitution things. I guess Nika told everyone off screen, but it's a little bit jarring that Soletta just knows the next time she sees him. Anyway, so in the hospital, Petra is still in a full coma, and the Gundam Schwarzette is about to be jacked by Lauda Neal, who's gone full psycho and decides he needs to use the Schwarzette to kill Miorine. And that's right, everybody, Miorine was the problem all along, because everyone went totally nuts trying to win Gundam fights to marry her. Does that make sense? Does it not? Anyway, it's a dumb reason, but I can't say he's totally in the wrong either. But still, major shitbag move to try and kill your brand new sister-in-law. Like, think of your brother, man. Alright, anyway, so let's break this episode down. Honestly, this episode was really straightforward, but a couple of things played out really quickly. So let's just go over where everyone is now, because I think G-Witch has, unfortunately, as of this episode, switched into finish this the fuck out mode. And from where we stand after this episode, I think they could probably finish it the fuck out pretty fast after this. So let's start with Shadiq, because I have to assume that Shadiq is just done at this point. If he comes back in any more episodes, I'd honestly be surprised, because I think he's out of the game barring a last-second deadly twist. I think from this point on, either Shadiq dies in prison, or they're saving him for some kind of crazy-ass Milliard or Peacecraft arc if G-Witch gets a Season 3. His harem's all in prison, the Earth Witches are all dead, plus Prospera and Cathedral have destroyed all their Gundams, so super effectively, Shadiq and his other forces have just been completely cut off from the plot. Lauda Neal, though. Lauda Neal is suddenly coming back as a last-second freak-out villain in an attempt to murder Miorine. If I had to guess, based on where we're at, this is probably going to lead to Lauda killing Ghoul as retribution for Ghoul killing their father, and then probably Soletta will kill Lauda to save Miorine and reestablish the Mio-Soletta relationship. Elon 5 has surprisingly defected to Earth House, and I feel like he did that way too easily because he was a criminal, but they didn't really have fully enough time to play out his escape plan, so I mean, otherwise I just imagine he's going to tag along with the Earth House kids and probably end up killing OG Elon and the Pale Witches because they've thrown in with SAL and they'll probably be on the battlefield, Or maybe the Pale Witches will get away because they just seem to be untouchable a-holes. Miorines is up in space in Ghoul and crying her eyes out, while Cathedral is with them, and I guess they're just sitting around in the middle of this mess. And it seems like Ghoul, Cathedral, and the SAL are all like directly positioned around the Quiet Zero, like potentially right outside of it, potentially right outside the data storm bubble, and close enough to see what it's doing and be annoyed by its actions. So, I mean, at this point, technically speaking, Prosper is probably just going to be content pushing forward her science experiments with the Quiet Zero, trying to build Area Permanent Body. But I don't know how exactly things will play out, mostly because there's two giant-ass armies trying to stop her from doing that. I mean, technically they could have just left her alone and lived, but she's killing everyone who gets near her giant data storm. Although really the data storm itself is killing the people, Prosper's just like living inside of it. But nonetheless, she's racking up more kills and her wanted level keeps going up a la GTA, so the government just keeps sending bigger and bigger things to fight her. Which finally brings us to the Earth House Kids and Soletta. So Soletta, as of this episode, has been officially drafted by the SAL to use the Gundam Caliburn to stop Prospera. I can see this going very wrong very fast. By the way, some nice rando online has posted a brightened up pic of the Caliburn for this episode, so we can actually see it a little bit better. It looks almost exactly like the Aerial Gundam, except it's got a lot more glass on it, so I imagine it's going to be a really, really beautiful looking model. It's also got a big piece of glass on its V-fin, which gives me subtle ZZ Gundam head blaster vibes. Honestly, if this thing has a head blaster, that would be wonderful. Anyway, the Caliburn, cool as it is, it's supposed to be extremely lethal for its pilot, which is Soletta. And they clarified that all the time Soletta was piloting the Aerial up to now, she was basically playing pretend while Aerie actually did all the work. Soletta was just sitting in the cockpit seat pressing buttons. So that's not very good for Soletta because this is going to be her first time piloting a real dangerous Gundam. So no one knows about this except the audience, but Prospera still has Soletta hardwired to obey her in the event of an emergency. I mean, technically they never clarified exactly what this was, so it could end up becoming a plot hole, but it seemed that in Season 1, Prospera had Soletta extremely brainwashed. But at the same time in Season 1, Soletta didn't care, and she seemed cool with the fact that her mom was always right. Soletta now, though, seems at least to be somewhat willing to try and make her mom stand down, and Caliburn versus Aerial seems to be poised up as the final Gundam fight of the show, and that'll be pretty epic. It would be cool, though, if Soletta is still brainwashed and Soletta did switch sides at the last minute, because that would be a major mindfuck moment, and I would have no idea what would happen if that played out. Like, who would stop Soletta and Prosper if they teamed up? I mean, like, the only, like, person still on the board at this point would be, like, Ghoul and the Earth House Kids, and, like, they're all, like, completely unqualified to stop Soletta and Prosper together. Like, honestly, if they teamed up, like, they win. I'm honestly slightly let down that Cecilia and Roji never became more important. I think they were just like fucking big shots at the school. I am going to praise the show for doing one more classic Gundam trope the justice. So in the original Mobile Suit Gundam, the White Base crew took on this really weird, realistic group dynamic. It's hard to fully explain it, but over the course of the original Gundam, you got to know them all pretty well, despite the fact that the ones who got the most screen time were the ones who interacted with Amuro the most, you know, Hayato, Frau, Kai, Jose. Like, the original Gundam was mostly told from Amuro's perspective on the ground level, but still, despite that, like, all the White Base kids were important in their own way, and it honestly felt real. Like, you know, when you go to school, you're going to school on average with, like, 30 different people, and at most, maybe you'll, like, talk to some of those people, like, every day, and some of them you'll never talk to at all, so... You know, I think G-Witch has done a really great job, like, displaying that same kind of, like, dynamic with the Earth House kids. Because I feel like I kind of know most of these kids, even the ones, like, I don't really talk to, and even the ones that definitely don't really matter more than the others because they don't really interact with Soletta and they don't get enough screen time. But anyway, what I'm getting at here is this is all coming full circle because it feels like now in these last, like, couple of episodes, the Earth House kids are finally going to become a ship crew, and they're going to become this makeshift White Base crew for the final act of the show. This episode was honestly weird because it feels like in this single episode, as fast as possible, the show reformatted itself from Revolutionary Girl Utena to the original Mobile Suit Gundam, with all the asteroid, space fortress, political hypocrisy, space army war bullshit. But yeah, enough people have died on this show that my hot take on this show at this point is I'm guessing everyone's gonna die at the end. I'm guessing we're going for a classic kill 'em all Tamino ending, which, you know, IBO had a kill 'em all ending too. So, like, I'm guessing the way the show ends right now is Elon kills Elon, maybe they both die. Lotta kills Ghoul, Soletta kills Lotta, Soletta marries Mirene, Soletta and her mom will probably talk, and then Prospero will probably get killed by some weird outside force, like maybe she falls off a cliff, or maybe she just goes full suicide if she gets sad enough. Eri will probably escape into the wild as a sentient, dangerous Gundam maybe, or maybe she'll just go to heaven. I don't know, Eri's in a really bad position in her life. We could also get a horrible ending where Soletta does die from permit poisoning because the Gundam Caliburn is that dangerous, and then Mirene and Ghoul still get married. Well, whatever you do, don't ship Ghoul and Soletta apparently, because that's just not going to happen. Alright guys, see you next week.